Hello today. Hi.
Hi, Ollie.
I'd like to introduce you to my dear friend Julia Moore, who is a dear friend and yoga teacher, and much, much more than that. She does so many different things. I'm always amazed how many things you do. And I was just hoping to talk a bit about yoga therapy, yoga, somatic yoga. What do you do? How yoga has changed and what yoga can bring today to people who struggle with the challenges we have and just the turmoil we're going through. So is there anything we could talk about that today?
Absolutely, absolutely.
Amazing. And since COVID time, yoga's sort of changed probably for you a little bit, your yoga practice, and I was wondering how that's changed for you, if you want to talk about it a little bit.
Yeah, thank you, Ollie. It's so lovely to do this talk with
It
you.
is really lovely,
Really,
isn't
thank
it?
you for inviting me. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for coming.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, so definitely since COVID, when we went through the lockdowns, as you know, everything stopped, and certainly being in person and being able to be near to a person was just impossible. So we all went to Zoom. That was really tricky. But, you know, as life goes on and we manage, and I found Zoom surprising, actually. I didn't think that it was going to work. I thought it was ridiculous.
Yes, we
I
all
just
did,
thought,
didn't
this
we?
is silly.
This is not going to work.
This is not going to work.
You can't replace the human sort of, input.
Yeah, because my classes were very, very hands-on, and we were all very packed together in a tiny little room and very much connected.
Yes.
So to be in our separate little boxes and separate spaces seemed like, oh, what's this going to be like? But yes, there was this strange kind of understanding of a sixth sense that came through, that I could feel what people were feeling. I could get a vibe of what was going on through the little boxes and through the screen.
It's amazing.
Yeah, so that it was okay. But I'm very much glad to be back in person again. It was good for emergency measures.
Yeah, that's true. And also it just tells you can expand your practice that way, in a way, don't you? You can have a bit of both if that's what sort of interests you and that's what you like.
Definitely, because not everybody can make it to a yoga class.
Right, exactly.
You know, some people I've been to teach in hospitals, and my partner, who's a sound healer, he teaches sound baths, and some people log in on Zoom to his sound baths from the hospital. So it opens up potentials for people.
For time zones and all that as well, doesn't it? So you can have clients from all over the world if you want.
Absolutely.
That's cool, isn't it?
It is really cool. It is cool. It's not my favorite though, but it is definitely, yes, if people can't find a yoga therapist or a yoga teacher that understands their particular predicament or what they're working with close to them, then it's nice that they can use Zoom.
Absolutely. So what do you work on with your clients nowadays? Like, what's the sort of quite a theme that you see is happening?
So yeah, my theme for a long time has always been chronic pain and chronic fatigue, things like you can look at that. It's always on a spectrum. So it could be achy pain in the back that wouldn't go away, or achy pain in the knee that wouldn't go away, or it could be a diagnosis of chronic pain or chronic fatigue. So that whole spectrum is definitely what I'm interested in. That was the main class that kept on going throughout the lockdown, was the people in pain class.
Yes.
Because that was the most essential one.
Yes, yeah.
And often, you know, you can go and do as YouTube yoga or something like that, whereas the yoga for chronic pain is very specific.
Yes, very targeted sort of issue, isn't it? Yeah. But I wonder if people sort of realize that the pain isn't necessary in their body, even though they feel it in their body, whether that was because you also moved to somatic yoga. Is it called Hana somatic?
Yeah, the type that I trained in is called Hana Somatics, and Thomas Hana invented it. He also coined the term somatics as well.
Okay, did he?
And he was very, very involved in the whole somatic movement. So he was working with Feldenkrais and lots of other somatic pioneers.
Oh, right.
And yeah, Feldenkrais himself worked with FM Alexander of the Alexander technique. So it's kind of, it has its own lineage in a way. But I found the somatics really helpful for my own chronic pain. And I don't like really talking about myself as having chronic pain, but realistically, that is the case.
Well, you know, even yoga teachers, you know, let's make that clear. Yoga teachers do feel pain.
Yeah,
And sometimes more than
absolutely.
others, even because of the, you know, practicing quite strongly in a way. Some of them. You
Yeah,
know.
my journey was very much. That's a very good point, actually. It's funny when I started myself practicing yoga, I was learning from a book, and I learned from the Light on Yoga with the illustrations. So it's not the big book with lots of writing. This had lots of pictures, which worked for me, and it was so nice. I just explored this book, and there was very detailed instructions, and I did all of this and just went into my own body and felt it, and it was lovely. And I did that for years. And then when I had my daughter, I mean, I started when I was 16, and it was mostly self-practice because I didn't really have that much money to go to classes. So then when I had my daughter, I was like, oh, I'm living in Crouch End, there's a gym, there's a creche, I'm going to go to these classes. And that's when the trouble started.
Okay, too much of a good thing.
Too much of a good thing. Up until all this time, it had been great.
Yeah.
Really helped my anxiety, my pain, because I had pain at a very young age, lots of tension and anxiety. So I think the pain came from the mental realm, from anxiety and fear, and that tensing up and holding everything in was really stored in my body. And the yoga really helped to make me feel more confident, more grounded, and released a lot of the tension and therefore the pain. Not all of it, but a lot of it. And yes, then I went to these swanky classes in the local studio, and it was Ashtanga yoga, which was very, very cool at the time. And of course, I'd been practicing a long time, so it was very easy for me to do all the poses, and the teachers would come in and push me deeper into the poses. And I was like, oh, this is great. I'm really great at this. My ego was flying very high. So I loved it, loved it, loved it, you know. And then, oh my gosh, I was sitting on the floor with my friends in my flat one day, and I got up and my knee just went.
Oh, wow. And you were how old then?
So Lucy was maybe about 3, so I was like 30, 32, 33.
So very young, you know, for someone to have pain like that.
Yeah.
You know, someone who's, you know, in a good fitness level.
It was a yoga injury. I sort of didn't realize it at the time, but it slowly dawned on me that lots of these moving into the lotus pose and doing the very strong stretches and constantly stretching when I'm hypermobile weakened my joints, and I was like an old lady for about a year. So one knee went, and then it blew up like a big balloon, was red, and I had to like hobble around. And then because I was relying on the other knee went. So it was like this more than a year really, and I had physio, I had all these different things, and physio couldn't fix it, and they were talking about surgery, and I was like, I'm not going to do that. And so that was my journey with actually learning how to do yoga myself through the yoga teacher training. So I hobbled onto my yoga with these 2 big knees and not quite a stick, but I went through periods of having a walking stick. It was really that bad. Yeah, it was I think the diagnosis was a torn meniscus and the what are they called? The ligaments torn as well. So yeah.
So big yoga injuries. I guess it's a lot about the balance then.
So much so. I mean, that really was my foundational experience of like, okay, yoga's great.
Yeah,
but yoga's great, but and going to learn how to be a teacher with the 2 knees was also very humbling, and the strengthening. The kind of strengthening that I wanted to do as well, rather than the physio strengthening, which for me I found very, very boring, so I didn't do it very often. Whereas strengthening with warrior poses, strengthening with the yoga was really like, yes, I feel this. This is like, yeah, this is what I want to do. So my knee's totally healed from learning how to teach.
Amazing.
And also I learned how to help people with knees. And I was very lucky in my original teacher training. There was lots of people. I was the youngest on the course at about 33, I think I was at the time. And people up to their 70s were learning. So they brought with them lots and lots of different ailments and conditions. So as it wasn't a yoga therapy training, but it kind of was, because we were working with us, and all of us had something wrong with ourselves.
So true, though. I think if you study therapy of any kind, you first of all start with you.
Yes, it's the best teacher.
It's the best. I mean, you got to start from you, don't you? It's just that's how you heal yourself, then you heal someone else, then you heal the community, and so forth, don't you? So it's the good place to start.
It's so important, because to feel what it's like to be in pain from the inside out gives you so much more understanding for others that are in pain. And I think sometimes, and the details of the pain as well, because I've had lots of different sorts of pain. So I've had knee pain, I've had hip pain, I've had back pain, I've had shoulder pain, I've popped out my elbow, I've popped out this shoulder, I've popped out this shoulder, had lots of headaches and sinusitis. So that's why I sort of say it's not quite chronic pain, but I have had a lot of pain.
Yeah, different locations on your body. Yeah. I mean, what I really liked with your class, when I came to your class, was that you really just let people to explore their body, which I really never seen again. And that's such a shame, which I think is just a really fundamental thing, that people don't just be not just being prescribed yoga, they need to really explore their own body within the class.
Absolutely.
And I felt such freedom in your class, really, to explore myself and just go with my own instinct, because then, the teacher, even though they have, of course, good intentions, they overriding your body's instinct, and that's not what yoga is about, in my view, anyway. So I just wanted to say thank you for that, because that was a huge, for me, learning from the whole yoga practice, that actually I am in charge of my own, levels, and how far I go with, within the yoga session. And that really no one else should be overriding it in any way, even if it's a teacher.
No, that's so true. You are the expert in your own body, and because nobody knows what it's like and to live inside your own body. And there's so much to say about that. That's really interesting. It's fascinating, really, because you can't tell really from the outside, even that someone is in pain. Sometimes you can see it on their face or they're holding somehow. But really, some people, you can hardly tell.
And also you can't get to that precision point, probably, how far you really, that's for the person
to decide.
In the journey to decide.
And there's it's for me, I see the yoga, the type of yoga I teach as understanding the messages that are coming from the body. So understanding the little details of the tweaks and the twinges and the aches and the pains and the creaks and the beauty, the absolute, the blissfulness. Understanding all of those messages and really meeting the body where it is. Because we treat the body sometimes like a kind of a donkey that's just carrying around our mind.
Quite mean. Quite mean to our body.
Do this, do this. And it's like that yoga can be like that. Do this thing, do that thing, do this thing, do that thing.
Sort of turn into a bit of a personal training, rather, isn't it, in some ways?
It can be. Sometimes. I mean, the modern development of the asana practice in the ancient traditions was seated poses. It was very little else. There was Shavasana was there. It was a very, very important pose, that relaxing lying down, at the end. And some little poses, but very, very little. Most of them were seated poses.
So the original sort of, just so I understand it, is just to focus more on your inside. Is that why?
It's a meditative practice, predominantly. And the yoga poses were there to open up the body to help to sit. So these, and it's not only it's not only Westerners who had to learn to connect to the body, everybody had to learn to reconnect with the body, because there was a kind of a worldwide kind of split over millennia. Like in the ancient days, we would have been much more close to the land and much, and that has continued to some extent in India for a longer time than in Europe and the US, but we've really become disconnected with our bodies so much that we can't sit comfortably in these yoga poses for an hour or 2 hours. So the asana practice was developed about 200 years ago in collaboration with European bodybuilders, wrestlers, all kinds of interesting exercise people who would come to India and collaborate with the yogis. Such a fascinating, to create these sequences that we know as the Ashtanga yoga and the Vinyasa yoga, all of that. It's a collaboration to some extent, but the yogis that were overseeing it came from this certain viewpoint of this deep understanding of the way that energy moves in the body. So when they're looking at a physical posture, they can see how the energy flows, the prana flows through the bones. And so that aspect of the collaboration with the Western kind of exercise professionals was the key to making yoga and not exercise. So that's what makes it the difference. Even though it looks like exercise, actually it's about the flow of prana through the body. And that's why, that's why yoga is different.
And make it work for the Western audience as well, because they possibly...
Yes, but also to make it work for the Indian audience too, because they were really interested in the body. They were also really interested in getting strong.
Because they said Iyengar is quite strong.
Yes, and he also was like me, very sickly child, in a lot of pain. He had asthma like me as well, and so he used yoga to strengthen the body, and so and that collaboration is part of it. So interesting, but the essential part does come from the yogis. And also the breathing, the noticing how the breath is in the postures is very important as well. So but the way that, so now yoga is so many different types of yoga, isn't there? There's all these different types that came from the gurus and the lineages that came to Europe, and then there's all these different types that Westerners have developed. And it also came to the US. But so there's so many different types of yoga, and it used to slightly annoy me, but I've really made my peace with it now, because there's a different type of yoga for lots of different types of people.
I mean, it's a natural evolution, isn't it? Like, it's not stagnant, which is a good thing. It needs to evolve with time, and it's just everything does, doesn't it? So it is ever so changeable. And now when it comes to the somatic yoga, that's almost like another level, isn't it? Does it feel that way? Because you studied sort of Hana somatics.
Yeah, so for a long time I felt like I should be true to the yoga, the Iyengar yoga. My teacher was trained by Iyengar, and obviously I learnt with my Iyengar book. So I felt like, I must stick to Iyengar style. But actually, I was introduced to quite a few teachers who would break free. And they broke free for very good reasons, because their bodies told them. So they really listened to their bodies and actually spoke to Iyengar himself and said, actually, this isn't working for my body. And had these discussions with Iyengar, and these two teachers I'm thinking of, Angela Farmer and Victor Van Kooten, they actually ended up leaving the Iyengar community, even though they were senior teachers. And because they were true to what their body was saying. And that really opened up a whole new avenue with me with the pain, because by doing what my teachers were saying was actually hurting me, was hurting my knees, hurting my back. So I had to find a way, and I did classes with Angela and Victor. I think a lot of people come to yoga because they're stiff, but my problem was that I was too bendy.
You were hyper flexible, which is too as well, hypermobile,
Yeah, so that going more into the bendiness didn't work for me.
Yeah.
So I had to find a different way, and I did do a little bit of personal training and things like that, but that didn't kind of, my body wasn't completely understanding that. And then, yeah, after a little while, I found Somatics.
Right.
And Somatics, I completely understood it. And my body
Right.
just went, yes,
Well,
this
tell
is
us
it.
more about that. What is Somatics?
So it was invented by Thomas Hanna, who trained with Feldenkrais.
Mhm.
Feldenkrais himself trained with F.M. Alexander, who's invented the Alexander technique.
Mhm.
And it's very much based on the experience of being inside one's own body and listening to the body, and really understanding things from the inside out. So yoga sometimes can be, and lots of things can be, from the outside in. The teacher will see, oh, this needs to be there, this needs to be aligned, and judge a
Yes.
person from the outside.
Yes.
But really, somatics is about finding that prana flow. For me, I really don't, I like to keep that idea of working with the prana, but from the inside,
Okay.
through the physical body. And Thomas Hanna was amazing for finding that. He really got a sense of how the bones articulate together in ordinary movement, like breathing and walking. He was very interested in walking. And from that, he developed a series of movements that you could do lying on the ground. So very safe, because
Yes.
you're held by the ground, and also very accessible for people in chronic pain, because it's exhausting to hold yourself upright. A lot of the time, with people with hypermobility, that's one of the conditions of hypermobility, is it's hard to stand for long periods of time.
Okay.
And obviously, if you've got backache or knee pain, it's also hard to stand.
Yeah.
So doing it on the floor, and very simple movements, but there's a few differences, and I can go into them if you want me to, or not.
You can give us an example if you like. If there is something that's sort of.
So the fundamental movement is arch and flatten, which is a movement into green light, which is arching your back and opening your chest and your belly. And then a movement into red light, which is flattening and scooping in your belly and rounding a little bit. So we do this lying on the floor, but you can also do it sitting. And it's very similar to yoga. It's cat-cow.
Yeah.
In yoga we do this on all fours, and you're round.
I mean, sort of Kundalini yoga uses it a lot with the
Yeah,
breathing.
the flexing of the spine.
Yeah.
So it's very precise in Somatics. The articulation of the head and the chest is very it would be like this and like this. So that was something that used to really puzzle me. Like, where does the head want to be in relationship to everything else? And I was looking for the answer of this everywhere in yoga and exercise, couldn't find it. And in Somatics, it's there, and it makes sense. That it's not just always bringing your head like this and always being like this, because we need to move in all different directions, in all different planes of movement, and really respect the diversity of movement of our whole skeleton. And that's really what Somatics does. So yeah, I love it for that. Also, it has this idea called pandiculation, which is like what the dogs and cats do. And it's what's in yoga as well, like the yoga pose, the dog pose, and the yoga pose, the cat pose, are all about pandiculation. So it's kind of a yawning sensation. So if you take a yawn, take a big stretch, and then what is that yawn? It's not just a stretch. If you think about the back of your body is tensing, and you might even tense your fingers and then release them.
Feels more tension rather than tense and then let go, isn't it?
Yeah, it's that tense and release. And that tension, Hanna really hypothesized, and I don't know whether it's exactly proved, but his idea is that that tension really connects us to our brain, because our brain directs the muscles and allows them to engage. Our brain doesn't really have so much to do with the release of the muscles. It's very concerned with the engagement, and there's less energy coming from the brain, less communication coming from the brain about the release. So there is communication, but less.
Right.
So by tensing, you're really switching on that nervous pathway, and then by slowly releasing, you're showing that nervous pathway how it can kind of recalibrate, how it can find more muscle fibers and find release as well.
Okay.
The other main concept that is really interesting about somatics is sensory motor amnesia. So certain parts of the body go to sleep. So for me, particularly in the pandemic, but actually all the way through my life, I've had a shoulder that lifts like this and a head that goes to one side. And so these muscles here sort of get a little bit stuck for me. And I need to keep kind of pandiculating them and moving them and reconnecting them to my sensory motor nervous system to bring them back online, because otherwise they get stuck and asleep, and they get sort of, that's how we get tension and tightness.
It's like a disconnection really from itself.
Yeah.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah, and that's so his practice is about removing that sensory motor amnesia and moving every single part of us with awareness, so that we can reawaken these muscle fibers that have gone to sleep and kind of find these places and reawaken them. And actually it happens quite quickly.
Yeah.
And once you get these other muscle fibers online, then chronic pain starts to change. And I won't say it completely goes away, because it might shift to another place or it might do different things. Sometimes it goes away, but it changes.
Okay. Well, that's the first step, isn't it? In a way, you need to shift it, and then there's maybe more healing to be done, and so forth.
Absolutely, because there's more to pain than just the physical.
Yeah. That's fascinating. So how did that change within your practice of, when people come for the chronic pain relief in yoga? Do you include somatic yoga, I assume, or?
Absolutely, yeah. I do this course called Yoga for Healthy Lower Backs, and so a lot of people that I teach in pain, they come for that course. And luckily the course is yoga, but you can sneak the somatics in very, very easily, because the teachers that designed it were really, really intuitive, and also were working with their own bodies and their own pain. So they knew what worked, and what worked is this pandiculation and this really sensitive, subtle movement. So it's very easy to weave the somatics into the Yoga for Healthy Lower Backs, and then that just kind of expanded out into all the different areas of the body. So that comes into my classes, in general classes, which are for pain.
Did you have good results with that? Did you see any change?
Yes.
Oh, that's awesome.
In so many ways, and it's so just the best thing to be able to help people. So yes, really helps knee pain, hip pain. It does depend on how much people come to class and how much practice they do. But it might also, as well as the practice, or maybe even sometimes instead of the practice, it's about the awareness they develop about their own body.
Yes.
So how are they using their body in everyday life? How are they sitting? How are they standing? How are they on their phones? How are they sitting at their desk?
So being more aware, more mindful.
How they use their bodies. And the habits we get into. And the somatics is very much about that, about examining those habits and noticing. And yoga is essentially about the mindfulness, about how we're holding ourselves. And it's not so much, I think it's been brought to the West in a way that it can be quite regimented, yoga, but it's not so much in its entirety about that, do this, do that, jump here, do this dog pose, do this plank pose. It's more about experiencing your body as it moves, and really learning about it, getting to know it.
Hello. Where is it?
It's here.
Oh.
So just ask me a normal question.
Yes.
Or any question.
How are you this morning?
I'm fine. Doing this crazy video thing. You know how it is.
Yeah.